All right, and welcome everyone to the Ginette Biro podcast. I'm Ginette Biro, and today I am joined by Cindy Lang, who is not only just an absolutely beautiful human being, but she has so much information to share. She does Akashic record readings, she does oracle card readings, she does massage therapy, she understands all the oils and how oils work with the body. She knows nutrients and supplements. Like, this lady is a powerhouse of knowledge and information. And so we're going to try and stick to Akashic Records as our theme for today, but we might tangent, and that's totally okay because Cindy and I often run on tangents when we have conversations. So thank you for joining the show, Cindy.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, we definitely can get off track, but we'll try and zone it in
We'll try.
for
Yes.
today.
Yes, good call. So we were bantering back and forth a little bit before we started, and we had such a wild moon recently, and there may be a little bit of time before I actually post this podcast, but I want to speak on the power of moons real quick because you tune into moon energy big time. And how did you
Mhm.
find this moon?
I found this moon. For me, I find it's really inviting in a lot of change, and it's inviting in. I do a live reading every week, and I was channeling yesterday, and it was all about really bringing us to a place of recognizing how important it is to be in our energetic sovereignty. So I feel like we're in a time of change, and the wind is like blowing like crazy today, which I always feel is the wind of change is blowing in. And it's also helping us to really cleanse our aura and get clear on if our energy is our own, or if we're being pulled and making decisions because of what other people think we should be doing. And are we over giving? Are we overextending? Are we making choices because they are what we want? Or are we making choices because other people have strong opinions? It seems to be a theme. Have a
Mhm.
strong opinion about what we should be doing. And so it feels to me like this moon is really a time to get stable and get strong in what you want and what is your grounding, and to be grounded in what you want.
Mhm.
And it feels like there's a lot of situations that can pull us out of that, or even to help us to recognize where we might not be sovereign in our own energy field, or sovereign in
Yeah,
our own thoughts and in our own minds. So it seems to be
absolutely.
strong.
And do you find that like moons in general are such a great time to set an intent and like take note of where you are, what you're doing, where you're going, and if you like it or not, and like reset, realign? Like, no matter which moon, the moons in general allow that like little pocketed time of uh, alchemy, if you want.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I absolutely do think that. It's funny because sometimes people, they maybe don't believe in the energy of the moon, but the moon actually governs the tides of the ocean. And so what phase the moon is in will depend on how the tide is, how strong or how high the tide is. And our bodies are made up of almost all water. So of course the moon is going to it's going to affect us. It's going to affect our mood, and it's going to bring things to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's a full moon is when I like to do ceremony or set intention around what it is that I want to release. And when the new moon is here, I like to think about what I want to create.
Beautiful.
And that's usually, as a rule, that's how I focus upon that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So there's a little moon insight for you. And I was liking where you were going with this in the first place anyways, because of how it relates to Akashic Records. And you were saying how um this this moon in particular, but we could also play into most moons, give you an opportunity to come back into sense of self and alignment and what is working for you, who is pulling from you that you don't need to have that pull from, and so on and so forth. And so I find that accessing Akashic records, and we'll explain exactly what those are right away, further give you the ability to really reinforce who you are and what you're doing and where you're going in your lifetime because of the knowledge gained. So that being said, tell us, what are the Akashic Records? Is for someone who knows nothing about it and they're like, Akasha, what? What is the Akashic Records?
Yes, it's kind of a funky little word, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So Akasha itself is a Sanskrit word, and Sanskrit is the original language of India. And in translation, the word means primordial substance or all-knowing. So it's a field of energy in the fifth dimension that actually holds the record or the blueprint of everybody's soul as long as your soul has ever existed. So this includes individual human souls, but your pets have an Akashic record. Anything that's been created has a record. Your business will have a record. Your house will have a record. Everything has a record. I primarily focus on the human records, but you can go into the records of anything as long as you, if it's like your business, it has to be your business. Or if it's a home, you have to be at least 50% owner of that home or of that business.
Yeah, you can't go in and spy into somebody else's records. Like
you can never go in and spy in somebody's records. Even you can't even open the records of somebody else and get information without their permission. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's karmically not nice to do that anyways.
You know, and I find the same with readings too, though, is like, I can't go in and spy on somebody else, even if someone's like, can you tell me about so-and-so? It's like, you can't energetically do that unless there is a value of knowing that information for the highest good of all involved. They'll give you a snippet, but you can't just like, because you can have clairvoyance or access to the Akashic Records, you can't just go in and muddle around back there and find out everything about everything. Right.
That's exactly right. And in I'm going to explain what the records are, but just that we're on this point, people sometimes will want in a reading for me to open the records of somebody else. And I never will do that. I'll say, well, why don't we go into your records and ask how you can either support that person through their journey, or what is your role in it? What does it have to do with you? But you can't change anybody else. You can't, and it's none of our business anyways.
Yeah.
So in the field of the Akasha is the record of your soul's existence. So that includes all of the choices you've ever made, all of the decisions, your soul contracts, your family patterns, your ancestry, anything that's happened in this lifetime. So we believe that before you're born into the body that you're in currently, you've lived other lifetimes before. Okay, so you've had many, many other lifetimes. And when you pass on from that body, you always go back up into the field of the Akasha. And in the Akasha, you have a soul guidance team. You have a team of light beings who have never been embodied, that have been with you throughout your whole existence, that are guarding your Akashic records. They're guarding the information. Lots of people always ask me, like, what do my guides look like? Well, these guides in particular, they don't have a form because they've never been in a body. It's, I think, kind of like how you see the three guides of the light. It's just an energetic, it's just an energetic being. And then we do have teachers who are lesson based. So you'll have a certain teacher or guide that will be with you until you learn a specific lesson. So if it takes you 10,000 lifetimes to learn unconditional love, that teacher will be with you for that entire time. And then when you learn that, that teacher will leave and a new one will come in. If you, you also have what we call loved ones. So those are usually this lifetime relationship. So it's somebody you've known or somebody that you're related to. So it could be like a passed on grandfather, or somebody that you've maybe even not met, but that it's like in your family line somehow, or somehow this person is connected to you. Or it could be also animals that have passed on, that are deciding to show up in your Akashic records so that they can be there to support you. And not every being that you know that's passed on is in your Akashic records. It's just those ones that have chosen, or that you've had a contract with to choose that. So you're up there, you've passed on, you have a life review. Or it might be last lifetime, it might be the last few lifetimes. And okay, cool. So I learned this and I learned this. And oh, look at me. I actually figured this one out this time round. Oh dear. Oh no, I didn't learn forgiveness, maybe, or I didn't learn unconditional love, or I didn't learn to speak my truth, let's just say. So you choose that you want to be born again in a body so that you will have the opportunity to learn those lessons so that your soul can ascend to a higher level of consciousness or a higher frequency. But guess what? If you want to learn forgiveness, you have to have somebody hurt you, or else you're never going to have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So you might pick a few people and you might have had past lives with them. So you already have some karma. It might be like, oh, look at, okay, you hurt me in this last lifetime. So let's even it out and I'll come back and be the one that hurts you this time. Or it might be new souls that are coming in, but you'll have a series of people lined up to help to teach you whatever that lesson is. So we see it a lot of times in like things like abusive relationships. It's like somebody's in an abusive relationship and they get out of that relationship, and then the next relationship, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they might have learned enough to leave that relationship, but they didn't really learn whatever that pattern is.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have like 20 people set up until you figure out that lesson. Once you figure out that lesson, those kinds of people or situations aren't going to show up for you anymore because you've cleared that. Then you're also going to pick the family that you're going to be in. So you're going to look at the ancestral patterns, and you're going to choose parents that are going to have exactly the right mix of the things that you need to grow and evolve in this lifetime. So it can be that you choose a family who's going to love you and support you and help you in a lot of ways, but maybe there might be like all the women in this family, they don't know how to speak their truth. So maybe the man is always in charge. And so you've decided that you're the one that's going to break this family pattern. You're the one that's going to do something different.
Yes.
Or it could be addictions, right? You might choose to be born in a family with addictions because you are the one that's going to break the chain.
Yes.
So we always think that we choose to have kids, but I think it's the other way around. I think the way I see it is the soul chooses that family. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the perfect one. And then we also choose things that are going to happen to us in childhood that are going to sort of really set the stage for ingraining the patterns in us. Because if we don't have these, traumas as a child, we're again not going to have the drive or the motivation to try and make a change. So you set this whole thing up. You even choose your body. Yes. Lots of people say, well, why would I choose a body that's sick? Or why would I choose a body that's disabled? Or why would I choose whatever you choose? But you actually do choose. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I loved about when I learned this is because we're in a world where it seems like vanity is so important, right? Like we're always so worried about what we look like. And your body was your soul's best choice. Mm-hmm. Your body was your soul's choice as its vehicle to help move it through this lifetime. And when your soul was up there imagining and creating your body, it loved this body that it was choosing, mm-hmm. because it was perfect and divine exactly the way that it is. Yeah. So I find it so beautiful.
I do too. I just like, yeah, absolutely.
Right? And then you're born. So you're born and you have spiritual amnesia. Most people don't really remember, why you're here. What's your soul's purpose? And so you'll be moving through your life, and then most people get to a point where they're either recognizing a repeat pattern, they have a wound or a relationship that they just can't seem to figure out the why of. And then that's when they come for a reading. That's when they come for an Akashic record reading. So I use what's called the pathway prayer. And I use a prayer to access your records. And the reason that I use a prayer is because there's no guessing. I know 100% for sure 100% of the time that that's exactly where I am. Many people access the Akashic Records in many different ways. So some people can just hop right in there and read somebody's records. Other people might use like hypnosis or a guided meditation. But for me, it's just a steady form, and I always know that I'm there.
Yeah.
So we read the prayer. I read the prayer using your full name, who you are, and we get access into the Akashic Records, and then we get to have a conversation about what it is that the client wants to know. And you're right, it's very private. I can't go in there and think that I know what you need to know. I only ever get information that is helpful to you in the current moment, and that's related to whatever situation is going on in your life. Otherwise, they don't give me anything.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's private.
Yeah, and I love how like Akashic, because people often ask like, what's the difference between a mediumship reading or Akashic Records or, even past life regression or intuitive readings? And it's like, they're all different, but yet they're all one and the same. They're all pathways and modalities to get you to access things that are going to help you in your highest good, with the little asterisk by the thing of access is given when it is going to help you. Therefore, it is also blocked at times when that is in your best interest. And so I love that, like, so much of what you're explaining about Akashic Records and the readings, and even the way you go into it, is so similar to mediumship readings, yet they can be very similar, but also different, but they parallel beautifully, right? Like it's an invitation to try out several things. So anyway, keep going. I'm loving it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The one thing that I will say that is different between an intuitive reading or a psychic reading in the Akash is that the Akashic Records will never predict anything. So it's never predictive, because we believe that you're creating your life moment by moment. And you talk about this a lot, Ginette, of how we have several different timelines. So if you stay on this timeline, this is probably where it's going to go. But what we really want to do in the Akashic Records is to come back to the wholeness of who we are so that we can live our best life possible. And it's interesting that the information that comes through is always so unique to that person's soul. So like, I'll give you an instance that I think is just really a fun one, is that lots of people come because maybe they want to lose weight. Maybe they want to, have a different body. And sometimes I might read the records and it might be very practical information. This diet is best for you, or this exercise regime might be really what's best for you. And it'll be practical and easy steps to follow. In another reading, it might be, well, look at, you actually starved to death in a past life. I can see you've lived through a depression, or I can see that you've lived through some experience where you didn't get to have nourishment. And so you decided that, and you created a pattern that it was your best way, or your safest way to keep yourself alive, was to eat as much as you could whenever it was available. And that might be what created maybe an overeating pattern, or even the pattern of your body to want to hold on to extra weight. I've gone into my own records about my weight because I find, for me personally, I find it really hard to stick to a strict plan. And I saw many lifetimes where I have actually lived in quite extreme ways to find enlightenment. So I would meditate like the Buddha, and I would live on a grain of rice only a day, because I thought that starving myself was going to be like, having that strong discipline was how we found enlightenment, which is what they taught back in those days. And so in this lifetime, for me, it's about experiencing the richness that everything has to offer, and I can still be a little bit heavier and still be enlightened and still be healthy and still live a happy life. It's not my lifetime for that discipline. And so it's so interesting. So this is how it works. So where do I want to go with this? In the case of like the lady who had starved to death or had starved in another lifetime, in an Akashic record reading, what we would do is we would journey back to find that version. I would do a guided meditation, and we would journey back to find that person, and we would reconnect. They would reconnect and let that person know she's safe and she's okay. We would give her whatever she needed. And it's like a soul fragment sometimes gets lost. We have all of these experiences where we lose a piece of ourselves.
Yeah,
And
I
so in the
agree.
Akasha, we always want to come back to a place of wholeness. So that's what we do. We journey back to the traumas. We journey back to the places. And it's not like reliving the trauma. Like, it's not like being in a counseling session.
That
We're
was
just
just what I was
visiting
going to
that.
ask. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like that. It's not like we're rewatching the trauma. We're just going back to the broken part and giving that person what they need. So it could be an inner child. It could be something that happened in this lifetime, or it could be another lifetime. But what we do is we clear the wound.
So, because one of the common questions that I ask or that I get from people when they're asking about Akashic record readings or past live readings is their thought is, I'm afraid I will see something scary, or will it tell me something I don't want to know? What if I learn something about myself I can't handle? Right? There's such a fear energy in that piece. And so what can you say to speak to that again, like the comfort and the container that can be an Akashic record reading?
Right. So the Akashic records always are loving, kind, and supportive. Always. And remember that you're always in your Akashic record. So of course we open up the records and we're in there and we're getting information, but your Akashic record is part of you. It's part of your soul, and your soul knows what's best for you. And it's not going to take you somewhere where you can't handle. It's not going to take you somewhere or give you information that's going to cause you harm in any sort of way. It just doesn't do that.
So if anyone
And
has a reading in which someone takes them to that, that would be a strong indicator of an inauthentic reading.
absolutely, I would say that. And another thing that I would say is that I read a lot of like other people's, other practitioners' descriptions, saying things like, well, I can clear your karma, I can clear your Akashic record, I can, reset your life. And I say that is, I don't know how anybody could do that for somebody else. It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, everything that I've learned about the Akashic records is that everything is happening in a perfect and divine way. And so we don't want to change anything. Sure, we want to heal the part of ourselves that's broken because of the situation or the event, but we don't ever want to erase it. Well, we couldn't anyways. You can't erase your Akashic record. You can simply realize the truth of what that moment was trying to teach you. And then you come back to a place of wholeness, and you don't have to repeat the pattern anymore because you understand why it showed up.
Right. I love that. So with readings, how often would somebody want to do an Akashic record reading? Is this like a once a year thing, a once in a lifetime, or how do you usually, I mean, I guess it would be very individualized anyways, but what's your recommendation for people who are curious about this but haven't stepped into it yet?
Yeah, so I always say it is individual, and it all depends on what you're going through. I have sometimes people book one reading with me because they have like one certain thing that's going on in their life, and they have a reading and they feel great, and it seems to open up their path and they move forward. And they might come back once a year, or some people I haven't ever read again. And then I have other clients that come often, and they'll work through one lesson and they'll be like, that was so great. Now I have this other thing, or this other thing, or this other thing.
The
so they may
layer.
have them. It's the layers. Yes. And another thing too, is that we don't always have to be working on our soul wounds either. So we can also use the Akashic records to step into the divinity and the truth, and to awaken the gifts that we already have. So we can journey back the same as we journey back to find our soul's wounds. We can journey back to find a place in time when we lived in a place of balance and being empowered. or where you lived in balance with money. That's one thing that a lot of people have been doing lately. It's like, well, there's got to be lifetimes where we did it right.
Yeah, right,
So,
exactly.
you know, so let's go back and embrace that. So really, it all just depends on what the person's wanting to get out of their personal journey. I personally go into my records often. I don't always go in to journey some great big thing. I go into my records daily and just ask, what's my best thing that I can do today to support myself? So it doesn't really matter. It's kind of whatever you want.
Whatever you want. I love your emphasis though on like being able to go back in there, not just for healing, because I mean, the world has been going through so much upheaval and healing in many ways, and moving through traumas and surfacing of traumas and things, right? But then there's also others who have done a lot of that and are ready and wanting to discover the fruitfulness, the abundance. And so I love your invitation of that, because I think that needs to be equally spoken about as much as healing traumas and wounding, as discovering your triumphs and your hidden dormant gifts or abilities or successes, and equally balancing that along your path. I think that's such an important statement. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, because it can be an addiction. It can be an addiction to like dig up all our old wounds. Yeah. But our soul is always perfect. So let's embrace that.
I love it.
Let's embrace the perfect parts of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that was such an amazing amount of information, Cindy. Like and I know we're only really hitting the tip of the iceberg, because we've chatted for a long time before. So I'm going to leave it at that for now for people to digest. And we'll do this again to take like an in-depth look at, say, like a specific pathway within it. But any kind of closing remarks or things you want to leave people with about Akashic Records?
For me, I find that the Akashic Records has been pivotal in my healing journey in all kinds of ways. It's helped me tremendously to heal physical things in my body. It's helped me to heal the patterns that I had that were sabotaging behaviors. And it's really helped me to discover the truth of who I am. And so if that's something that you are interested in learning and discovering more of, how to embrace your best life, what path to take in order to really, really create the best possible and highest, for your best and highest good, then that's why I would recommend having an Akashic record reading, because I feel like it's such an empowering thing to do. It's such an empowering session to have. And the thing that I love the most about it is that it often takes us somewhere where we can't even possibly go in our own mind. So lots of times we'll do like our own meditations to try and find this place in time, or to find out our why. And in the Akashic Records, it just takes us to such a deep level that it's often very, very surprising where it comes from. And we wouldn't have been able to figure that out on our own. Yeah. So if you're feeling stuck and you don't know what to do, I always recommend a reading is a great way to tap into that.
And I will second that, because I've had a few readings with you, and I mean, for myself, I can tune in quite easily, but I get stuck. We all get stuck, right? Or we can't see through something. And I know with you, the variety I've experienced in readings, sometimes I've come to you with a list of questions, like, I want to know about these things. And then other times I've come to you with just a feeling that I need to talk to you and get into my records, and we just go in. And so we've gone in a very linear question-based way, and also in an explorative way. And they're always so fruitful with information that, puts to rest certain things or answers certain pieces. So I can definitely attest to your skill and ability, and the adventure and the journey that it is going into the records. Like, I highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. And
Yeah.
I feel the same way about having a reading with you. It's
Oh,
always amazing every single time.
thanks.
Every single time.
Oh,
Whatever you have to say is always so full of light and wisdom and truth and inspiration. And
oh,
I feel so blessed even to just be here with you doing this interview and to just have you as a friend and to
oh,
work with
well,
you on a
likewise.
deeper level is yes,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. Well, okay, we are so going to do this again. Absolutely.
Okay.
So what we'll do is I'll put, for anybody wanting to connect with you, you are on avalonspirit.com as one of the
Mm-hmm.
personal journey guides. And then I'll also
Yep.
connect the different links to how people can find you on Facebook, because um, Cindy also, well, actually on the Avalon Spirit group page, she's also posting her weekly card readings, which is awesome. So it's beautiful that you're doing that. Thank you. And
You're welcome.
they're really informative, and I enjoy listening to them because it like sets me for the week. So definitely
Awesome.
check that out. But I'll put the other links of how people can get in touch with you as well. So
Perfect. Thank you
uh,
very much.
all right. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. And thank you to everybody listening. Please do like and share and subscribe if you haven't on YouTube already, because I will be giving away some free readings. And yeah, just thanks all for joining. And thank you again.
Thank you.